Are you looking for a podcast where you can hear from real people regarding their real dental drama? If so, then you've come to the right place. Join hosts Bethany Petty and Dr. Rena Kuba as we dive into the solutions we've created and the mistakes we've made while managing dental drama. Let's get started. Dr. Williamson, welcome to Managing Dental Drama.
Thanks for having me today.
I know this is just what you've dreamed of doing, so I'm excited that you're officially here. But before we get going, I want to tell people who you are. So you and I was trying to think about it on the way over. A year. Yes.
Yeah.
So we've worked together for a year. So still fairly new, getting to know each other. But I think I've told you this. The second I met you, even that first phone call, I hung up and I told my husband, I just talked to the nicest person I think I've ever talked to. You just radiate kindness, and you truly are one of the nicest people I've ever met. So there you go. I should knight you as Mr. Kindness or something. But I thought of you for this particular episode because we have been talking about a subject that I just feel like is you, which is generosity and kindness and all of that. So I had to have you on the show today. But before we get into that, tell our listeners about you, who you are, your practice, all that good stuff.
All right. Well, I'm Robert Williamson. I was born in the Glasgow area of Scotland, and I moved to America in 1997. I was 26 years old. I didn't graduate high school till I was just before I turned 26 and came to this country.
Wow.
So I got sponsored by a family to come over and go to university here in the States, and then ended up going to dental school and then pediatric dental residency up at Ohio. So I have been teaching part-time the residency program at Children's Hospital in Dallas for the pediatric dental residents, and then I have my own practice up in Sherman. I bought it in 2008, so we're about 16 years into it.
Man, it's been a wild ride, huh?
It's been a wild ride.
I have a feeling that even no matter what you say today, people may just go back and listen to you talk. So your voice alone, your accent alone is soothing. Okay, so you've had a practice for 16 years, almost 16. And I want to hear from you. Dr. Kuba and I spent all last week's episode talking about this concept of appreciation and having kind of this attitude of gratitude. And you said something recently that resonated with me. You said, no matter what, you need to be generous from the start. You need to find ways to be generous. And we are in the month of Thanksgiving and all of that. What are some ways that you display your generosity? And I would say, why? Why do you choose to display generosity?
Well, I'm the first person in my family ever to go to college, so that's definitely a big change in my family, and there's so many people in this journey for me that have helped me. I was kicked out of high school when I was 17, and so I really never felt as though I would amount to much in my life. And so for me to be a pediatric dentist is kind of overwhelming and just being grateful. And something happened way back, I think it was about 1999, 2000. I was in college at the time. My wife and I had our first son. He was about a year old. We were both in college. We were both working part-time.
Wow.
And we heard somebody at church, I remember anyway, he talked about how you can't wait until you have a lot before you start to give. You should give even if you don't have much. And so that Christmas we decided that we would choose a family in student house and do something nice for them. And anonymously, we wouldn't tell them it was us. And there was a family from Bulgaria that lived across from us, and they had a couple little kids, and so we decided we would put together like a Christmas package and just put it on their doorstep one night and leave it and not tell them. They had no idea it was us, and we didn't want them to know. But just right, kind of from the start, even though we were barely making ends meet, still to give and still to be generous. And so, and we've had that reciprocated many times. We lived in San Antonio for dental school, and one day we come home, we had 4 kids, and we were living in an apartment, and my wife decided she was going to try and teach some violin at the school, but she never had a teaching certificate, and I think the teaching certificate was going to cost maybe around about $400, and we never had the money. And we came home one day, it was around about Easter, and there was a little fluffy bunny rabbit toy sitting outside her door with an envelope, and we opened it up, and it was the exact amount of money that she needed to get a teaching certificate. And so this isn't a journey of just giving, it's a journey of receiving too. When we needed it most, somebody, and we don't know who that was, and that was 2002, 2003, so over 20 years ago. We don't know who did that for us. And so it's hard to receive, for sure. I think it's harder to receive than to give, but I think when you embark on this journey of giving and being generous and seeing and looking for somebody that needs help, because you'll find them pretty quick, it all comes back to you.
Yeah, and trusting that, trusting that you're doing something. It may not be immediate, but that has an impact.
Just a part of your journey. There will be some hard times, and I think definitely if you have a generous heart, then everything comes together for the good, and you'll be taken care of.
Yeah, for sure. I love hearing that. I did not know that background on your generosity. I think your generosity is very evident, and the gratitude that you have is evident. So I think when you hear that that's come from really hardship, I think that paints a picture of you can still make a difference out of those hardships. And even when you've got nothing, even when you're rubbing 2 pennies together to make ends meet, that you can still be generous. And I think that's a really great mindset. So with that generosity mindset that you have, I want to kind of find out how you then view that in relation to your staff, because I think there's certainly times in a practice, a lot of times in a practice, where maybe it is feeling like you're rubbing 2 pennies together and there's just not much to give. How do you balance that generous mindset with the financial demands of a practice as well?
It does. I mean, you don't have to be generous with money. You can be generous with your time. I mean, a lot of my staff have been in and out of the hospital, and you can go visit them.
Yes.
I've had staff that have had their kids in hospital, and you go visit them, or you go take groceries to their house. And, for me to go spend $150 on groceries and show up at a staff member's house and give it to them, that's not a whole lot of money. But it's generosity, it's time, and it's that you do care for them.
Yeah. It's the thoughtfulness. It's even if it's not a huge financial give, it can still, like you mentioned, the time. I can think of so many things, even if there's not a financial component to it, taking the time to writing an encouraging note to one of your team members, or like you said, even just showing up and visiting them in the hospital, or they've got a sick kid that you're going to visit. Like that's I would imagine that to be very impactful for a team member, to see my boss is here and cares.
Yeah, you would hope so, right? Because we're all busy. We're all busy, and so to stop what we're doing and to go and make sure somebody's okay. This is life, and this is what we do. Yeah. Like, my life is very good. I have a wonderful life, and so much of it is because of my staff. Like, I hear all this. Sometimes my staff will say, I love working for Dr. Williamson, or I love it. And I'm like, you don't work for me. Yeah. You work with me. You work with me. Yeah. We don't own these people. They have skills, and work ethic and everything else that gets put into this place that I don't have.
Yeah.
And without them, I don't have the life I have.
Right.
And without me, they don't have the life they have. And so really it's this beautiful symphony in a way where, you know, you're taking care of people and you're looking out for them and you're treating them well and you're treating them with respect and you're loving them. And when you can be generous, you be generous. And sometimes that is your time, and sometimes it is financial, and sometimes it's, showing up for one of their kids' sports games or whatever. But we don't have the life we do without these people.
That's right.
And the only reason I sit as the owner or as the doctor is really because of different circumstances in life that led me to this. I mean, my staff are just as smart as I am, and their opportunities were different.
Yeah.
But any one of them could be a pediatric dentist.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and again, I think when you have that mindset about your staff, it's a mental thing. So in a lot of my last week's episode with Dr. Kuba, we talked about it all starts with this mindset that we have to have. And it is this attitude of appreciation. And I think that can either be forced or that can be authentic. And I think when we have authentic appreciation for our team and respect, so saying something like, any one of my team members could be a pediatric dentist. It's just the opportunities that were afforded to them are different, or the desires that they have are different. Maybe they love and get fulfilled off of insurance, and that's just their world. It doesn't pay the same as a pediatric dentist, but that's their love and their passion, and that you have enough respect for them to appreciate what they bring to this practice. That's authentic.
They have skills I don't have. They can do things that I can't do.
Yeah.
And so that's what makes up a team.
Yeah. And I think that's the right way to view it. And then what's great about that mindset, which again, some people may have to fight for that mindset. I think due to your life and your mindset, it just comes a little bit more naturally to some people. And I think you are one of those people. But when you have to fight for that mindset, it does then force you to be more generous, either with time, with words, with acts of service, or financially. If you truly respect and appreciate your team, that then becomes a very natural outpouring. And I would say you in particular have shown your appreciation. This is why your team says all the time, they say it to me all the time, I love working. They do say I love working for him. But they really receive your admiration and appreciation and know that that's rare. So I want listeners to hear some of the things that you've done. I know you mentioned time, showing up to the hospital, showing up to a kid's game, things like that I think are super, precious and sweet to your team. What else do you feel like you've done to show your appreciation?
Well, we've done a lot of mission trips. The mission trip thing has definitely been a journey. So when I was 7 years old, one of my sisters had to have plastic surgery.
Oh, wow.
And she was 11, and I remember going to visit her in the hospital. And a couple of months later, we were watching TV. Now, this was like the late 70s in Britain, so there was like a couple of channels, and it was black and white.
Yeah.
And it was about this surgeon in Africa doing this mission work. And we realized that surgeon on TV was the surgeon that treated my sister.
Wow.
And so when we were watching this as a family, I was just a little boy, but something inside of me just jumped out, and my heart just got real big. And inside of me, I said, I would like to do something like that one day.
Yeah.
Now, I went on to be a teenager and everything that goes with that, and then get kicked out of high school and everything that went with that. And so I never got to go on my first dental mission trip, until I was 30 years old. So the first year of dental school, the Christian Medical Dental Association did a luncheon, and they said, hey, we need some people to go to Mexico to the border town and provide dentistry. And I was like, okay, I've dreamed about this for 23 years, so I'm going to start doing this. And so I started doing these weekend mission trips to Mexico. And then when I bought my practice, my first hygienist had been to Nepal. And so we decided we would try and put a mission trip together. Yeah. And so we signed up, and we ended up going to Belize. That was the first mission trip. I took my dad, I took my I took my hygienist and her husband and a couple of assistants. And then we kept kind of going back. And then at one point, we took the whole office. It was 15 of us.
Wow.
Went on this mission trip to Belize for a week, and I paid for all of it, which I was happy to do. And then I went to one in Israel, and then last year I went to Cambodia. But so we've taken a lot of staff on mission trips, and I wanted them to come on a mission trip to serve people out there that are less fortunate than we are, but also to appreciate what they have living in America and their comforts and luxuries, and just see how the world is outside of the States.
What a cool experience for your team
as
well.
So that's one of the things we've done over the years. Another is about 4 years ago during COVID, we did a hiking trip for the weekend, and so that was super fun. So everybody came. We went to Zions National Park in southern Utah, and we went to Price, Arizona. So it was like a 4-day trip, but really, really fun.
Wow.
And so we've done a bunch of stuff over the years together.
Yeah.
And I think they want to do something. They want to do another trip. So
yes.
I guess we're going to do another trip.
You're like, this has become part of the norm now. But again, I think that's cool that some of your trips have been mission related, and to allow your team, because there might be doctors that feel passionate about medical missions or dental missions and they themselves go, but to then also make it financially possible for your team to go you're right, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because you're getting the opportunity to serve alongside your team in another country, but also they're getting to see another country and come back with a different vantage point and a mindset of appreciation, which then, one of my favorite subjects is culture. It fosters a culture of appreciation amongst your team, because it's not just you, the practice owner, that has had these experiences. It's also your team members that have had these experiences, these shared experiences, and then y'all start to have a same ideology around generosity and giving back in some way. So that's really cool. So, and I know you've got a trip coming up too.
We're heading to Nepal for 16 days. We're leaving next Thursday, November 7th. So So that's an ongoing thing that has kept going. So that's really neat. So generosity in the way of dental missions, which again, I love seeing that even as a little boy that you had a heart for that, and now it's coming full circle, and incorporating your team in that, which I think is so pivotal. But even during a very tough year, COVID year, taking your team out somewhere and knowing that was a super high stressful time for everybody, but especially as a practice owner, financially, that was very stressful. And in the pinch of that, you're like, no, let's go, and I'm willing to invest in my team. Well, they were the ones that came to me and said, we want you to take us on a trip. And so I said, okay, what do you want to do?
You're like, let's do it.
Anyway, yeah. So.
But again, knowing that they know you to be generous enough that you'll try to figure it out. I mean, I think there's plenty of team members that won't make the ask because of...
We figured it out.
Yeah. So sorry for the quick interruption. I hope you guys are enjoying today's episode. I had to pipe in real quickly and let you know that the Managing Dental Drama subscription content for this month expires in 14 days. So if you've been thinking about becoming a member, do so today. Click in the show notes, become a subscriber, and you'll have access to this month's content. It expires on December 1st. Thankfully, we'll have all new content that drops on December 2nd, but I certainly don't want you missing out on the content from this month. So click the link Become a subscriber, and we can't wait to have you be a part of the family. Okay, so medical missions or dental missions has been away, just taking trips. I know you're coming up on your annual Christmas party. And end of year, I know, is a time where a lot of practice owners can feel the pinch of where, we might be closed a little bit more during the holidays. December can be a tough month depending upon how much the practice is closed. It's a hard time for a practice owner to be generous. But I also know, we were just talking with your office manager about some of the generosity that you share. So there's oftentimes an end of year bonus that you put into play that is a form of generosity at a time when your team needs it. It's just as it's a financially tough time for you, the practice owner, it's also a financially tough time when we've already got groceries and bills and all of that, and now we've got Christmas on top of that as well. So when did you start kind of your end of year bonus, and what made you decide to do that?
I don't know exactly when it started. I'm sure it started right the first year I bought the practice. So I really do two things for them every year. At the end of the summer, they get to go on a shopping trip. So I basically give them a certain amount of money. They can go buy whatever they want for them.
Yeah. It's
not for their
them.
friends, not for their kids, not for their family, but they have to spend it on them.
Yeah.
And they all get to go together. They go to the mall. They get to go for lunch, a nice lunch, and they get to buy stuff for them every year. So that's one thing that I started right maybe 2009.
Yeah.
We switched it up a few times. We ended up going to the symphony. We went to a Broadway show, but the girls like their shopping. So we always come back to shopping. So that's what we do. And then Christmas bonus. Yeah, if you think too long and hard about it, you probably won't do it because it is at the end of the year, but you have to. So you just, you have to take a deep breath, and they have families, they have kids, they have stuff that they're struggling with and having to pay for. So you have to have a little bit of faith.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a good, it is the hardest time of the year probably to bonus, to do any kind of financial gift. But I think it goes back to that story that you told, when you and your wife have part-time jobs and you're struggling and you just make a choice to do it.
It's a choice.
It is. And doesn't make it any less difficult. It just is a choice.
Yeah. Whether you have a lot or have a little, to give is a choice. For sure.
So I know obviously Christmas bonus was just on our radar, but I think you're also generous throughout the year. I know you've got the two events, which by the way, you also have a Christmas party. So it's like you've got the end of summer, nice lunch, shopping thing that happens. You've also got a Christmas party, end of year bonus. But I think throughout the year, you and I have had several conversations this year where you've made choices to be generous to your staff. So you've got a monthly bonus that you share part of the profit of the practice with the team.
Sure.
So you try to pay them well from an hourly standpoint, but then also they get to partake in this monthly bonus.
Sure.
Was that something that you started early on, or was that something that...
there's been an evolution. It started, so when I bought the practice in 2008, there was a bonus system in place from the previous owner, which I inherited. And that had to be modified somewhat just because, he would take 1 week off every 6 weeks. He took a 2-hour lunch break.
Wow.
The hygienist didn't work in the morning. So it went from, hey, they were getting a certain amount for their bonus to when I bought the practice, it went way up. And obviously I would just come out of dental school. I had 4 kids. I had a bunch of debt. Had to buy a practice, all that. So that got modified. And so over the years, it has evolved. And so just now we have a certain bonus in place, and there's certain things they have to do to get the bonus. And so every month there's a kind of pool of money and that gets shared amongst all the people that qualify for the bonus.
Right.
And so I think once they miss one bonus, they don't want to ever miss again. So,
Right.
so it's a good incentive to have them do the things that we think are important in the practice.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we have a lot of single moms, and they need help too.
Yeah.
And so instead of just giving it to them, it's something that they work for and can be proud of, and they're part of a team. They work as a team, and they know that if they work as a team efficiently that month, then they'll get a good bonus.
Yeah. So what would you say to the docs out there that say, but they get their hourly pay? So why bonus? I mean, they're getting paid. Yes, they're doing a job. But why share any of the profit?
What would I say to them?
Yes.
There's a lot of things I could say to them. First of all, it's their choice. And if they don't want to give a bonus, then don't give a bonus.
Yeah.
I think it goes back to realizing that I have a very privileged life, and part of that privilege comes from them and comes from their hard work, dedication, how they represent me, how they represent the practice, how they treat the patients, everything. And so if without that, then I don't have my really nice privileged life. And so part of giving back and part of showing appreciation is to be generous with what you have. And so, as I say, it's a choice for sure.
It's a choice, yeah, for sure. Now, one of the things that I actually think about often for you is there any point where you feel like that generosity is taken advantage of? Are there certain ways that you have to protect yourself? I think a naturally generous person can be more prone to being taken advantage of.
Yes, and that has happened many times, unfortunately. There's just been all sorts of stuff happen over the years. When I first bought the practice, one of my staff's dogs had all these puppies, and she ended up bringing them up to the office, and I'm like, this can't happen. And then another staff member fostered a baby and never had anybody to look after it, and so I ended up hiring a babysitter to look after the baby so she could work. And then I had a staff member whose father died, and there was no money to bury him, so I paid for the funeral. There's I've had staff members, had their cars flooded. They don't have a way to get to work. So you're faced with all these decisions. Are you going to help? Are you not going to help? How much are you going to help? And they're not easy decisions sometimes.
No.
And have I been taken advantage of? Sure. Have I had to let people go? I have.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be generous. I don't want to be taken advantage of.
Yeah.
Or, Anyway, so you basically just got to play it by ear, and if you watch somebody do something once, you're like, hey, okay. If you see them do it a second time, you're like, If they do it a third time, then you know for sure it's not by chance. And so there's times we have to part ways.
Right. And again, that I love the idea that you have to watch for people that are taking advantage of it. And if you see that trend, okay, then there may be a decision.
The first time, sure. Yeah. I have a kind of funny story. So I went to Belize on a mission trip maybe 7-8 years ago, and I would always take money with me. So I would take $1,000 cash, and I would say a prayer that I would be, as I went through my week in Belize, that I would know who needed help.
Yeah.
So one day we were in this dental clinic in San Pedro, and I had a nudge that this man sitting on a chair needed some help. So I went over just to talk to him. His name was Manilow. I remember that because I only know Barry Manilow. Yeah. But this guy's first name was Manilow, which I thought was odd. And I just asked him, about his life and stuff. He was a welder, and his house had been set on fire on the mainland. And so him and his wife and 7 kids had had to move to the island of Ambergris Key with his sister, and so he was trying to figure out how to rent welding equipment, all that kind of stuff.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it ended up, he was one of the ones I helped, but he did come back a second day and ask for more, and I was like, I do have more money to give out, but there's other people that are going to need it. I've already helped you.
Yeah. Yes. There's an end to
Manilow. Barry.
Yes, exactly. It's like, you'll know. What's the harm in being generous the first time? And then, like you said, if it starts to be taken advantage of, then boundaries and parameters may need to be in place. But you never know until you're generous for the first time.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So with that man, okay, he comes back and no, you're not going to give any more. But you gave the first time. You were still able to be generous with that person. Yeah. Yes. And I would say, too, after working with your team for a year, I just have not seen a lot of evidences of people taking advantage.
No.
I just think they're grateful. They're appreciative for who they work with. They're thankful for you as a boss. And I just don't feel like people, at least this year, I don't feel like people have really tried to take advantage of that.
Yeah, and the other thing is, the staff that have been here a long time, they're very loyal and protect me.
Yeah.
And because I've been generous to them and they've been generous to me, there's a dynamic there. And so anybody else that comes into the practice, other staff members, if they try and start anything, immediately the people that have been here a long time, they shut it down.
Yeah. They come to your defense.
They do.
Without even...
I don't even know it half the time.
I was supposed to say, you don't even know what's going on. And I think, again, that is, like you said earlier, that's how generosity comes to repay you. That's not your intent. You're not giving to buy loyalty.
No.
You're giving out of the goodness of your heart. But ultimately, that's one of these beautiful side benefits, is that then you've got people that truly have your back and are going to protect you from anybody that might try to take advantage of that.
For sure.
Yeah. Is there any other situation that you can think of where you had to kind of protect yourself, or you had been generous and you're like, there's got to be an end to that generosity?
Off the top of my head, there is. I don't know if I can share them.
Yeah.
But
that's
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that there's times where staff members find themselves in very difficult situations.
Yeah.
And so if they come to you, I mean, that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
Because they got to really humble themselves and put their pride to the side. The last thing they want to do is come to their boss and tell them that, hey, I can't pay a bill.
Yeah.
Or I'm not making ends meet or whatever. They don't want to do that. And so I think it is really important when they do that we don't dismiss it or shut them down or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that we can help in some way. I mean, the goal isn't to basically to promote their lifestyle. It's to save a life, right? I mean, they don't have enough food, they can't pay their rent or whatever it is. Then I don't see a problem with helping with that.
Yeah.
Now, if it's a long-term thing, there's an issue. It's a lifestyle problem, and that they are going to have to change that.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
But I think there are times where, as a business owner, that we do have to have compassion and realize that if they are coming to us, then it's a pretty serious situation.
Yeah. And I would say, too, if there's not a dynamic of trust on the team, there can always be that anonymous nature to a gift, where maybe the employee hasn't had to come to you. You've caught wind of something that's going on, and there can be an anonymous gift that's given, or groceries on the front porch, or a card in the mail that's got a check in it that, can't necessarily be traced to you. So I feel like if there is a dynamic on the team that maybe isn't what you've created here, there's still ways to be generous in an anonymous way so that you don't run the risk of being taken advantage of. Or if you have a team that you feel like word would get around, oh, Dr. Williamson did this for me. Or I think what you've created here is unique. That doesn't exist in every office. And so I think if there's a fear from a practice owner that could create a negative ripple, or people that then try to take advantage, then an anonymous gift is always an option.
Sure.
Yeah. Can you think of anything else related to the topic of appreciation or generosity that you would want to share with listeners who are trying to do right by their teams?
I'm not totally sure. I think that just realizing, being humble enough to realize that you as a doctor isn't enough.
Yeah.
And that you are no better than anybody else on your team. Mm-hmm. Your path has been different, and that's great. But to really appreciate the fact that you are a doctor and you have this beautiful life and you have these amazing skills and you have this great job satisfaction. It took a lot of people to get you here. And while you're here now, in your space now, in your time, there's a bunch of people around you that without them, you don't exist in your life. And so just to come in every day and treat them with respect, love, and be generous when you can with your time, with your money, with your friendship, with counsel, with whatever it is they're in need of. They look up to you.
Yeah.
As your staff, they do look up to you, and they want to be proud of the office that they work in. And they want to come in and be happy every day, and they want to go home and be happy every day. And if they come in and they feel as though you don't appreciate them, that you look down on them, that if they were in need of help, that you wouldn't help them, you're not going to get the best out of them, and your life won't be as good as it could be. If you're incredibly generous and appreciative and really love your staff and treat them with love, your life will be better than it could ever be otherwise.
Man, you couldn't have said it better. That was like a perfect concluding comment. So yes, I would just second that and say that's such sound advice. So thank you for being willing to share your generosity with me, the generosity of your time, for staying late after work. I just appreciate you hanging with me and putting the perfect exclamation point on this topic.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining the conversation today. We hope that you are comforted in knowing that you are not alone, but we also hope that you're walking away with some really great tips and tricks to try in your practice. We value your feedback, so please take a few moments to rate and review the podcast. Finally, we want to make sure that we're covering the topics that matter to you. So track us down on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and let us know what topics you want us to cover. As always, please know that we are rooting for you today as you manage your dental drama.